Welcome to another edition of the Tesla Roadster podcast, sponsored by the Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner, and today we're going to talk about several things. We've got some Roadster sales updates and valuations,
We've got recent Roadster accessories for sale,
some Tesla 3.0 Pack Q timelines for Roadsters.
and an update on the stolen Florida Roadster.
Looking forward to seeing that. We have some updates on Roadster tire technology today.
hmm And of course, the Chinese Roadsters. That's always a popular topic.
Yeah.
Some updates there.
And an exciting update, too, on how is the German aftermarket Roadster battery project coming along.
I'm Pete Gruber.
Again, I'm Mark Schaffner. Welcome.
These and other stories on the Tesla Roadster podcast. So today we are, I had different glasses on today, by the way, but they became very uncomfortable. And I think Mark was the only one that was willing to live in a green morph suit today. So we have sunglasses talking at you today.
That's right. I'll wiggle my sunglasses so you know I'm actually really here, and I do have floating sunglasses today.
And we want to thank you for joining us. The the Tesla Roadster podcast has been moved from Wednesdays normally at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to 11 o'clock Tuesdays Mountain Standard Time. And I understand that we're going on daylight savings here shortly, so that's going to mess with the Pacific Standard Time a bit.
Yeah, it sure is. And in another week or so, when everyone in the country changes from from the daylight saving time to standard time, well, here in Arizona, where we're located, we don't change. And so right now, we're the same time as Los Angeles, California. In another week or so, we're going to be the same time as Denver, Colorado. So you're going to see our podcast time shift by an hour. I'm not smart enough to remember which way it's going to shift for you guys. But please take a look at us and take some time to search. You'll be able to find it pretty easily.
So we got an image we're going to throw up here, guys. It's called VIN 902, and VIN 902 is a Canadian Fusion Red Roadster. Yeah, there's actually, this owner had two Roadsters. One was Radiant Red, one was Fusion Red. And VIN 902 just sold, and fortunately it stayed up in Canada. We find it's difficult when these Roadsters sell across country boundaries. And, silliness takes over at times. We had one 6 months ago or so where they actually made the owner change the speedometer, the nomenclature. Remember? Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't like that it was the speed was being measured in kilometers, and they wanted to be based on the mileage system instead of the metric system.
So what finally prevailed was he went down to Kinko's, he got some transfer letters, and suddenly they were happy. But this was a Roadster that sold fairly quickly. We have the image up there. And again, it was on our Roadster matchmaking site, which is a very gentle way to sell your Roadster. There is no deadline. There is no huge commission being paid out to an auction company. And it's free, completely free. We have to keep reminding people of that. And even though we keep saying that, when people usually sign up and put something on the Roadster matchmaking site, they say, well, how do I pay you guys? I said, well, you don't. Why are you doing this? Well, it's a free service to the Roadster community.
Right. We even take the time to do on that Roadster community service with the auction site an escrow service. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these cars are being sold across state lines or even across country, and it's hard for somebody who might be in California to be buying a vehicle from somebody who's in Florida for everything to get transferred and set up properly. So we offer a free escrow service where the seller can send their title to us, the buyer sends the funds to us. Once we know that the car has been transported and moved where it needs to go, we then release both the title and the funds.
And until you said free escrow service, somebody was probably saying, so that's how they make their money.
Yeah, no, that's not how we make our money. That's a free service as well.
So the other thing that happens to prospective buyers, they once they buy a vehicle, or even before, we're involved in a lot of tech support. Questions like, well, tell us about the Roadster. I've talked to the owner, but has it been through your shop? And if so, what happened to the car? What does ownership entail? How do I get parts? What about service requirements? What are the options there? Storage issues. How do I store the car? Tires. I mean, these typically are new owners, and they have a lot of questions because this is not your average ICE car where the dealer sales rep can tell you all about, what to prepare for. So we get involved in a lot of tech support, and then the post-sales support. Transport, for example. How do I get the car from, New York to California? We can help with that. And again, free. We subscribe to Central Dispatch. We simply put in origin destination. We get bids back, and we send them to the buyer and or seller or both. As was mentioned, free escrow service. Sometimes that makes sense, especially if it's out of the country. How do I charge the car? How do I maintain it? What kind of deferred maintenance is there? How long will my battery last? What are the options for replacement? Where do I go to get it serviced? What Tesla service centers are still accepting Roadster service? And then typically valuation questions. So you get a lot of additional features and benefits by working on the Tesla Roadster matchmaking site. And the listings out there run until sold. I think we've got some that are over a year old, and these are what we call the unmotivated sellers. They just want to put their car out to play, like I did with VIN number 5. I think it's out there for $1.25 or $1.5 million. And honestly, if someone came along and said, "Okay, I'm serious, I want to buy it now," I'm not sure what I would do. But it's out there, it's visible, and By the way, the car behind us there, this is again artificial intelligence. Those things that look like gas caps are actually Mark and his sunglasses. There we go. You see them moving around a bit. Oh, there's a hand.
My hand.
There's a hand now. Okay. And again, if you can find any deviations from what a Roadster is supposed to have, feel free to chime in. The right number of spokes on the wheels, the right number of hood vanes, those types of things.
Does that car even have hood vanes today?
It does. It's right by my head, actually.
Okay. Yeah, well, then maybe one extra, but that's really close to the correct number.
Not bad. Yeah. We've got some comments here. YouTube Banana Man says, back again. Yes, we are. Thank you.
Thank you
for joining us. YouTube Herbert Booter from Düsseldorf, Germany. He says, Mark looks scary on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram doesn't get to see all the fancy graphics and stuff on the back. They just get to see me in my costume.
He probably looks like a green mummy. That's what I would picture.
Yeah, something like that.
Instagram. I can't read that, guys. Can bring it. Yeah. Oh, Himanshu Shriva says, what is resistance? Well, resistance in the electronics world is something that impedes the flow of current. And they are actually set up in various values, which is important when you're biasing transistors, for example, or you've got circuits where you're trying to regulate the amount of current flow.
Himanshu had asked us a question in our last podcast. I think he's going to come to next week. But it sounds like he's just learning about EVs a little bit. Just like nothing is 100%, 100% in its efficiency, in electricity, resistance is that part of the energy that's being transferred out of a battery that turns into heat.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ohm's law is a very important component of that whole concept. One of the first things we learned in electronics school.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Albert from YouTube is joining us. He says, we are lucky to have you. Well, thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
He is a Roadster owner. YouTube, Peter Seelen, and that is Peter spelled in the Netherlands. Yeah, that's right. The Dutch way. Pieter. I had a good friend back in Rochester. We both had the same name, but spelled differently. He says, good morning from OSS, the Netherlands. Okay, I didn't read that first, but yeah, I could tell. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And those of you that want to share with us what color Roadster you have or what VIN, that's also of interest to most of our audience at times, so feel free to do so. One of the things I wanted to cover is the Roadster matchmaking site is not only used for cars or for Roadsters, but also for parts and accessories. And again, it's free. We invite you to list your items there. One of the things that's for sale right now, which will be posted shortly, is a Tesla Roadster TS70 wall charger. This is the wall charger made by Clipper Creek that the Roadsters came with back in the day. And it is a very reliable gray box that sits on the wall. It has a long, thick, almost 20-foot cable, I believe, with the proprietary Tesla Roadster charge connector on it. And it will charge up to 70 amps. It requires an 80 amp service in your house, so you got to make sure that you have enough electricity or your panel is large enough. In some residential panels, all they give you is 200 amps. And then you need to share that, of course. So that will be posted on the Roadster matchmaking site soon, and it's definitely a cool accessory for your Tesla Roadster.
That definitely is. And, many people thought that they would have to get a standard style, the 1772 style charger or with an adapter or something like that. And this is no adapter required. This is for Roadster specifically.
Yeah. Jesse, if you want to throw up an image of that, because people in the Roadster world are typically familiar with it, but just in case they're not, it's called a TS70 wall charger out in the images list. And shortly after that, we'll tell you about another charger. There we go. That is the very popular Tesla Roadster wall charger made by Clipper Creek. The next one, Jesse, is the CATS charger. And this is a charger that actually predates the TS70. It was something that was developed by Martin Eberhard, I believe. And Herbert Katz, K-A-T-S, by the way, has one of these for sale in the Netherlands, along with an adapter cable. And this does the same type of charging. It is either a portable or you can put it on the wall. But I think it's limited to only 30 amp charge versus the UMC 240, which will give you a 40 amp charge with a Tesla Roadster. But as Teslas are becoming collectible, I would imagine that something from the early generation Roadsters like this could possibly be valuable just because of its age. So if you're interested there, that item is for sale on the Tesla Roadster Owners Group Facebook site. And look for some of the recent posts from Herbert Katz. It was listed a couple days ago. And it's got the Type 2 adapter cable that goes with it. And it's a make offer type posting. And then the third item we have is something that was posted on the Tesla Roadster Owners Group site on Facebook by Dave Fink. And what he has is one of the early owner's manual kits. And this one is brand new, apparently. We have a picture of that, I think, guys. No, I guess we don't. All right, scratch that.
You have 7 pictures in the owner's manual photo.
I
You don't want any of those?
I did not put that out there, no. But this is the little aluminum-clad, almost bound booklet that normally resides underneath the driver's seat on a shelf. And all of the Roadsters came with this, and it's full of a number of booklets that are owner related. You know, how to do various things, how to charge. It's got certain error codes in it. It's a very informative little kit, and virtually every Roadster has it. Well, Dave is selling this and for $1,000. And the justification that he has for that was, he said that 2 sellers on eBay were asking $5,000 and the other $10,000. Now, remember, Roadster paraphernalia and parts and things are becoming collectible.
Right.
And so that was the reason for that. And he says, so he's asking 10% of the $10,000 figure. It turns out that it sold, and of course, there's some negotiation that oftentimes takes place. But as of this morning, I saw that it just sold for $650. And he didn't know how rare they were. But anyway, my advice to everyone is and I posted this on that Facebook site. These things are normally sitting underneath the driver's seat. And if you live in Four Seasons, someone may get in your car with slush and snow or whatever, and it's fairly close to the front of the seat. We find a lot of these little booklets are pretty beat up. Sometimes they're water damaged. Sometimes they put these little booklets in the trunk of the car. And as you know, that's also not a great place because you get a lot of movement, vibration. The aluminum gets scuffed. It's actually a black or a dark brown anodized aluminum type folder. I suggest, since these things are becoming valuable, is put that thing in your house somewhere. And, just like you would store it inside as you would any keepsake. There's not a lot of vital information for you in there anyway, something that you would need while on the road. So that would be a great place to store it. And then we've had some other people piping up that also have this for sale. One of the Roadster owners says, wow, if it's sold for that much, I'm going to look for mine tonight. Make sure he's got it. And then Sean Scherer, one of our local guys here, who sold his Roadster, he says, I have one of these as well. And he said, I would sell it for a good price. So it looks like these things are somewhat collectible at this point, and they're fetching pretty decent money.
Well, it's just like anything that becomes collectible. Once you get a certain level of degradation, in other words, there are 2,500 of these manuals printed, and we have 2,000 or so Roadsters still left on the road today. So that means there's probably somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 of these manuals. But like you said, Pete, most of these manuals have degraded over time because they've been in the seat or in the trunk or had weather and stuff. So the good quality ones are going to become collectible simply because they're so rare.
Sure. And by the way, in all fairness, this one that sold for $650 was still wrapped in plastic. It was brand new from Tesla. So if you have a used one, it may not go that high unless you find a highly motivated buyer that sees a shortage and wants one badly enough. A question from Phil Albert from YouTube. He says, what does that wall charger go for? We're talking about the Clipper Creek TS70. Back in the day, if you bought it with your Roadster, they were $2,200 to $2,400 a piece. We typically buy them in the used market for around $500. And we have a number of them around our shop area because they're very handy. It has the proprietary Tesla plug on it. For those of you that want to find an alternative to that, you could also get the standard NACS Level 2 Tesla charger, wall charger, and then just get a CAN Senior along with it, which is the Henry Sharp adapter that takes it from a NACS Trident connector to the Tesla Roadster connector. And that would give you basically the same function, unless you're going for collectability and nostalgia and you want to keep everything Roadster specific, then you could look for one of these TS70s. Now, what we pay for about $500 is not necessarily what the end users typically pay for these if they feel that it's important enough for them to get one of these.
Sure, that makes total sense. I love the idea of those CAN Juniors. You said it was the CAN Junior, correct? The
CAN Senior.
CAN Senior.
The way I remember it is there's a J1772 standard and then there's a NACS standard. The J1772 has a J in it, as does the CAN Junior.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. That's a great way to do that. Well, and with so many charging stations and the charging infrastructure moving toward the NACS standard, that's going to make it so that it's much, much easier to charge Roadsters than it's ever been before if you have a CAN Junior or in the future a CAN Senior.
YouTube, Daniel Burdett says, he said, I saw that silliness on eBay last night. I was just about to ask if you had any copies, physical or digital, for a 1.5 Roadster. I found a PDF for the 2.0, but cannot find the 1.5. Well, there's a challenge for the people that are watching this podcast. Let us know if you have any copies available of this documentation.
We have one of our clients that has Roadster stored with us. He's been on our show before, Mike Maloney. he recently he has us taking care of the paperwork for the Roadsters and of his Roadsters, and one of them may have this, and it might be a 1.5. I will definitely check, and if we can get it converted to PDF easily, then we might be able to do something like that.
Great idea. YouTube Daniel Burdett also says 650 is reasonable, but 5,000 is a little greedy.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were just throwing out some bait to see what would happen. And it'll be interesting to see as these Roadsters continue to evolve and age to see what happens to some of this paraphernalia that came with the Roadsters originally.
Oh, definitely. Well, and it's going to be the only thing I can speculate on is it's going to be the most unusual things that end up becoming valuable, what you would never think of that ends up being super value.
Instagram, Sekigültekin35. He says, hello, I'm watching you from Turkey. And that's the Turkish way of spelling it with an umlaut and a K-I-Y-E at the end. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being part of our audience.
Thank you very much. And then on Instagram, Kuni Patel 80 says, hi, sir.
Welcome also. So it turns out that Eric Robertson, who we've talked about often on this podcast, he's the guy in Houston, Texas, that makes replacement carbon fiber parts for the Roadster. And he's been doing a great job with various pieces. His most recent was a major piece of carbon fiber, which is the hardtop. And it has a beautiful finish on the outside, highly glossed, and on the inside. Normally there's fabric and some padding on the inside. And we'd be curious to hear from you, Eric. How did the thing transport? Because a few weeks ago, he had built a shipping crate. And the worst nightmare is when you have something that beautiful and valuable becoming freight damage, which happens to us all the time, by the way.
Yeah, way too much.
But yeah, we'd be curious if you're watching how that turned out. And it was, I think, a SoCal customer that was going to put that on their car. And we're looking forward to seeing pictures of the final installation on that car. But he was saying that when he got in line for an R80 pack back July 6th, the Tesla Service Center told him that it would be 6 to 12 months. And I'm assuming this is Tesla Houston, just to build the pack. But they left a voicemail earlier this afternoon, and this was earlier this week. He said that they are ready, and he feels that this may be a record, but he's very impressed. So it took just 4 months to get this battery pack. Yeah, and it is Houston, by the way. We also were contacted by the Tesla Tesla Tempe Service Center.
Right.
And we have a dozen or more cars here, Roadsters, that are waiting for the R80 battery pack upgrade. And they contacted us and said, are you ready for these two being sent to our service center? And I think that timeline was also just a few months.
Wow. And for them to call us and say two, that also is kind of a record on our side. We get the calls coming in, but it's always been just one. I think our record has to be with the World Traveler Roadster, though.
Yeah.
We let them know in advance that the Roadster was coming, that it would need a battery pack. They said, call us when you get there. We'll get them on the list. And Pete, what was it? 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that?
It was somewhere in that time frame. And it was actually corporate getting involved with that because they were very familiar with the car, and that in 2012, when Raphael, the owner of VIN 547, was actually given a party at Fremont because of his support and being an ambassador for Tesla, showing that you could have emission-free transportation and go around the world with it. So he's a Tesla celebrity.
Yeah, and Raphael's been such a good ambassador for Tesla. So that was cool to see him get a quick turnaround. Very cool as well to see Eric getting a quick turnaround like this.
Yeah, the actual message, by the way, was from Houston. They said, "Hey, Eric, this is Adam calling with the North Houston Service Center. I'm actually calling with some great news. We received your 3.0 battery for your register. I'm just calling to see when you'd be able to actually get the vehicle in here. We have some availability the week after next. to the week of November 6th. So just calling to see when you can get the car here. Very cool. So yeah, it looks like Tesla is continuing to build these battery packs and improving their production as they promised they would, which, by the way, in my opinion, is just in time, because we all know that these battery packs are not going to last forever. We do a lot of repairs on the legacy battery packs, and we're able to put them back on the road, but there is an end of life that will eventually occur with these packs. And it's nice to see that Tesla is ramping up production for that spike that is undoubtedly going to occur.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see that, and the fact that they have to recycle so much stuff in the battery packs. One of my favorite things that I like remembering is that Taiwanese barbecue manufacturer isn't around to make new battery packs anymore.
No, they're not. Well, they may still be around making barbecues, but they're certainly not contracted with Tesla at this point in time.
Yeah, not to make the battery pack covers anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of Tesla battery packs, guys, can we go to the Marco folder? And let's throw up an image there. And probably the middle one is going to be the best one for this. Yeah. Let's throw up image number 2 out of that Marco folder. And this is an update that I received just this morning, actually, from Marco Nolte in Germany, how he's doing, or how that battery pack is coming along. And we're pretty excited about that because, we have Tesla now as a strong option for these, or the only option for the 3.0 battery pack replacement. Now, this is Marco's version. And what reminded me that this was another topic is what Mark just said about the flat black barbecue 1,000-pound battery pack. What Marco's done is he's made it out of aluminum as well, but he's left it mill finish, which I think is a better look, actually. But his update for us is, and remember the last update on this was that he's cleared the majority of errors. He's got one left, and that is the inability to charge at this point because the firmware isn't prepared. And he was going to work on that. But he says, I'm in Norway right now. I wasn't able to fix the charging issue before I left. Probably won't be able to do the battery work as much as I did last week into the next 2 weeks. He didn't say whether it was work or vacation. But he said the test drives were very promising, at least. He took some logs, and he still needs to look into them in detail. Sorry for the late reply, as I wanted to let you guys know about the news on this replacement battery pack. Well, it looks like Tesla may have some competition before too long, and it's always nice to have other options. What we know about this pack so far is that he's using Porsche Taycan battery modules, and of course using the same enclosure, the same footprint, which makes perfect sense because now it fits up in the car. Jesse, if you can go to image number 3, we can see this actual battery pack inside the Tesla Roadster, and you can see just behind the carbon fiber roll bar, there's some mill finish aluminum exposed there. That is the battery pack in the Tesla Roadster, and he actually has it driving.
I think that is such an exciting development, and I'm still so impressed with Marco and the amount of work that he's been able to get done on the software side.
Yeah.
Because, what was it, just a couple months ago, Mark was telling us, yeah, I think I've got the hardware built, but the software, getting the hardware built is only about 10% of the problem. Getting the software reverse engineered and working again is going to be about 90%. Well, he's definitely gotten a long way on it.
And the two things that have prevented us, and I'm sure others in the aftermarket space, in developing a pack like this is two things. One is cost. If you put a spreadsheet to what Tesla is building, at 30,000, we saw they were underwater, as we would be, and we're a for-profit business. We can't do things for free or sell things under cost. The second one was the complexity and the integration. It's going to be nice to have someone like Marco, who definitely has some skills in terms of doing software integration like this, hopefully being able to preserve all of the Tesla Roadster instrumentation and the electronics in the Roadster, including the PEM, so that we have a true plug-and-play replacement battery pack. And maybe by using a Porsche type concept, module, the battery costs themselves could come down to a point where it becomes competitive with what Tesla's currently offering, which is currently, by the way, $40,000, with we believe tax being added to that as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Pete. The real hard lifting, heavy lifting, as it were, from a hardware standpoint, is going to be building up those battery modules by allowing something like a Porsche battery module to simply be inserted. He took away somewhere between 80 and 90% of the real hard construction work of physically building the battery components.
Mm-hmm. And then we have thermal management, which I'm assuming that he's going to have to work on, because these Porsche modules most likely will need that as well. But I think we've got the right guy on this project, I guess, is my vote on this. So
Yeah, I think we do too.
best of luck to you, Marco, on this project. So those of you curious about the stolen Roadster in Florida, if you remember, there was a customer that brought his Tesla Roadster to the Fort Lauderdale Tesla Service Center for service, and they determined that it needs a replacement battery, and that was almost a year ago or so. So you can see that these quick turnaround times are fairly new at this point. But as it turns out, the customer was in Greece. He was on vacation, and he got notification that his car is ready, but they can't find it. And it turns out that the car was actually stolen off of the Tesla lot. Tesla stepped up to the plate. They took care of the impound charges. It turns out the local sheriff's department found the car, impounded it because it was parked illegally, and we're assuming it was so illegally parked it wasn't just a parking ticket. It was probably blocking traffic in some way. And Tesla retrieved the car, brought it back to the service center, and the final thing to resolve is the key that appears to be missing. And Tesla's been working on that to get him a fob key. At this point, there is still no determination if there was any damage to the car from this brief theft trip that it took. So we'll keep you updated as details emerge, but that's the latest on the Fort Lauderdale stolen Roadster.
That makes me speculate here that the person who left the Roadster parked, I'm still thinking in the middle of the road somewhere, probably just ran out of charge, took the key with the car, and walked away.
Yeah. We thought that too, but remember, they found it a mile from Fort Lauderdale Service Center. So maybe he was an honest criminal that just wanted to go for a joyride and he was going to return it, but ran out of juice.
And I'm wondering if that's exactly it. Yeah. Seems kind of strange.
We don't know. And as details emerge, this is one for the books, because I'm only aware of one other Tesla Roadster that got stolen back in the day and eventually ended up in Ukraine. And oddly enough, it's in our service center currently being rebuilt. It looks like Instagram, we've got a comment from Zeki Gultekin35, and he said, "Do we have a chance to work with you to get an internship, and how do I contact you?" If you would like to contact us, EV for electric vehicle at Gruber.com is the best way to contact us. We have from time to time done internships in our service center, and we can certainly talk about that. So that would be the email address to use.
I'm glad you're the one that pronounced that name and not me. In this case, I would have butchered it. TikTok 93EK says hi.
Welcome.
And then RC Robinson-san on YouTube says, I've upvoted. I have a quick battery story. He says, I've used RC batteries that are lithium polymer. So I called the nearest Audi dealer to me that has partnered with Redwood Materials. They slammed the phone on me.
Really? Okay.
That is just so crazy.
JB, I'm sure, does not approve of that customer service approach. So I'm sure that there's something else going on here.
Yeah, I'm sure there is as well.
Instagram says thank you for the email address. Oh, you're more than welcome. Okay, so let's see what other images we have here that we can throw up for the Tesla Roadster podcast. Can you throw up Jaguar C-Type? There is no other reason to put this up here except for the fact that we are auto guys here, and it is a beautiful car.
Wow.
This is the Jaguar C Series, and I was at a car show a few years ago, and a very well-known Jaguar racer was there. In fact, the guys in my group there said he is very famous. So I went over and introduced myself. It wasn't Sterling Moss, by the way, but it was someone like him.
Okay.
And we talked a bit, and he said the reason that he loves Jaguars is because after World War II, a lot of the factory workers that were doing design for munitions and airplanes and such were looking for work, and many of them migrated to the auto manufacturers and to Jaguar. And what they ended up doing was applying a lot of their skills regarding aerodynamic design to the Jaguar, which substantially changed the car. And that's why you have these aerodynamic flowing curves on this car. But anyway, these are timeless cars. I would love to see, as we said earlier in the last podcast, see one of the EV manufacturers, once they stabilize, their product lines are predictable, stable, and profitable, to take a detour a bit and start making some retro EV vehicles that look like this, because I think there's a market. It's small, but there's a market for those.
Oh, I definitely think there would be. That's one of the most beautiful cars in existence. And that probably has, do you think it's a straight 8 or a V12 underneath the hood?
I would say a V12 based on the length of that hood. Entirely possible. For those of you that are knowledgeable, feel free to chime in here.
Yeah, love to know more about that. That's what I would call potentially the golden era of cars, though, is when the car was created.
Mm-hmm. So we have an update for you on the Chinese Roadsters, and usually people ask before we get to it, but today I beat you to it. The Chinese Roadsters are in our service center. They're doing well. We have not done any remediation other than a thorough technical type analysis on both cars. They still have the PPF problems, which are deteriorating and cracking PPF.
Mm-hmm.
They still have some of the rodent damage that we found. And by the way, it occurred to me this morning, barn find Roadster. Well, what else would you expect? Rodent damage, right?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Fair enough. So until these things sell, and it looks like they are getting close to being sold, we will not know what kind of repairs, remediation, what kind of upgrades the new owner is going to want to do with these cars, if anything. The collectability may be far more valuable, being as is. But as of Sunday midnight, we sent out emails to all of the original bidders and said the sellers are getting ready to close the door on this chapter, and they would like to get any final bids by midnight Sunday. And we did receive one, actually two, and currently the sellers are negotiating with the potential buyers. Again, we are a matchmaking service. Let's get that straight. We are not involved in the financial discussions. We don't participate in that. We're a dating service. We get the two parties together and then back away, and we don't even chaperone necessarily, other than providing some of the free services that we talked about. So expect these 3 Chinese Roadsters to be dispositioned here fairly soon, and we'll find out who the successful bidder was and what will happen to them from here.
By all means. And while we may find out the successful bidder, I know that there's at least one bidder and possibly 2 that have asked to remain anonymous. So it may be that we say, yeah, the Roadsters have sold, and we may or may not be able to tell how much they're sold for, and we may or may not be able to disclose who it was that got them.
And those are all options for the buyers and sellers.
Yep, it's up to them.
Yeah. And as I pointed out, it has been our honor and pleasure to represent the sellers in this historic sale of these early collectible EVs. It's been a lot of fun.
Boy, it sure has.
All right. We've got another picture we can throw up here. What? Need to do a better job with these pictures, or Jesse's going to get on my case here. Yeah.
While you're looking for a picture, we have Arnie B on TikTok who has come in and said hello to us. So hello, Arnie. Glad to have you here.
Welcome. Probably put that in the other one. All right, Mark, if you want to keep going, I'm going to go bring that folder in.
Sure. And I think where we're going to be going next is that we're finding a significant number of aging Roadsters that are suffering from loose upper front end and shock mounts. What's happening is that the mounting bolts themselves are starting to come loose, and it's resulting in an elongated egg-shaped hole in the bolt mounting hole. And also you get things like rattles and things of that while you're driving the car that don't sound normal. So once the upper shock mount loosens, the lateral up and down travel of both the bracket mounting and the shock bolt holes eventually open up, and it makes the mounting holes egg-shaped rather than round. This further adds to the looseness of the suspension and will sometimes cause clunking noises to occur. We believe that the cause is simply age. There's insufficient thread lock potentially that's being applied during the original installation, which is as much as 15 years ago. And the mounting bolts themselves appear to be made of a non-hardened metal instead of like a hardened steel, and they are stretching over time. You don't have to ship your Roadster cross-country to us to affect the fix for this. This is what we would consider more low-tech auto work. Any competent suspension shop in your area could investigate this loose bracket issue, and they potentially will have the skills to even replace your worn shocks, bushings, tie rods, etc., to make the Roadster completely smooth and safe again. Some Tesla Roadster centers have these Roadsters and can these parts and can service the Roadsters.
Yeah.
And we have on our Facebook a list of the local service centers that are doing service on Roadsters as well.
And something like this, which is a lower tech type, service, might also be done by other service centers, although we don't have that list yet.
Right.
We're still waiting for that from Tesla, by the way. But Jesse, if you want to go into a folder, it's out there now, and it's called Captioned Images in the Images folder. And we can start with the first one, which is AA. And there you can see the passenger upper shock mount and the two bolts that we are beginning to see loosening on a number of Roadsters that we've had come through the shop. There we go. What you're looking at here is there's a control arm in the lower portion there. The shock has been removed, so you can actually see the two bolts as they bolt into the frame of the Roadster. Whoops, my audio went dead. Okay. Probably my battery, but I'll keep going here. What's in the middle there, jutting out towards the front of the image, is the steering rack. And those two bolts generally are loose at this point. If we can go to the next image, which is AA1. Here we go. Okay. That is the driver's side, and the driver's side bracket is different on a Tesla Roadster.
Got batteries coming out here for you, Pete.
Batteries changed. Thank you, Cassie. Oh, get you my headset.
Thank you, Cass.
All right, Mark, you're going to have to shuck and jive a little bit more here while I put my batteries in. How's that?
Okay. So, yeah, what we're looking at on that particular picture, you're going to see my handing batteries over the picture.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a driver's side front shock mount. They've got the upper portion of this mount contains the ABS unit, and both the driver and passenger brackets have these loose mounting bolts. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and go to our next picture, we're going to be able to see the picture of the egg-shaped holes, and really what's happening. Those holes that you see on that bracket should not be egg-shaped like that. They should simply be round holes, and it's due to age and just the stress over time of the shock working its way, and
well, it's actually pounding is what it's
yeah,
doing because it's loose,
yeah.
and so you get some lateral movement with the bolt, which is now pounding on the soft bracket.
Yeah, and so those brackets are made of if I remember right, Pete, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe these brackets are just made of aluminum, though. They're not.
Oh no, they're steel.
Oh, they are
Yeah,
steel.
yeah,
Okay.
they are steel. Yeah, Chaz is actually working on a new improved version of these, by the way.
So he's going to make probably a heavier weight bracket than this, because this isn't necessarily that thick of steel as well.
Right, but if they never loosened, you wouldn't have this problem.
Right, correct.
It was the fact that the bolts eventually stretched, or there wasn't enough thread lock put on them, that you began to get some play in that, and that's what then caused the elongated hole on that bracket material. So we've got another image here that we can throw up. It's called Nylock. And here you can see what we put on the back of them now, which is not only thread lock, but we put what are called Nylock nuts on the back, which will have a much more difficult time loosening up. And that's what that little nylon portion is on the very front nut there, and the one in the back, you can see that. And then finally, if we go to, yeah, perfect. Oh, you guys can zoom in. Look at you. All right, they're getting good over there in social media. Let's go to DD, dog. And the other thing that we found is that the bolts were not hardened. So what we're changing them to is a 10 grade bolt, which is a pretty hard bolt, which is not going to stretch. So that with a Nylock, a new bracket, that will probably outlast your Roadster at this point.
In all likelihood, and if I remember right, Pete, the guys are also putting some thread lock on these bolts as well, correct?
They are, yes. And if we can go to another image, which is the DZ image, we'll show you what else we recommend by the time you get done having this suspension work done. We have not found a Roadster other than the extremely low mileage ones, which we have one right now. It's actually about 1,000 miles, that doesn't need shocks. Shocks do not last forever. And the problem with shocks is the change occurs over such a long period of time and is so subtle that you don't realize that you now have a bone-jarring ride, and it's nowhere near as smooth as it was when you first bought your car. This is also a good investment, and these shocks are actually made by a company in the Netherlands called Intrax, which has developed a package for the Roadster specifically, and not just the standard base Roadster, but these are the Tesla Roadster Sport package. So it's the performance upgrade that you used to be able to get with your Roadster. And we recommend changing these right along with any other suspension work that you may have. And the difference is glaring. I test drive at least a couple of Roadsters per week. And when we do a shock upgrade on those, it is completely different. And I'm a pretty good judge because I've lived in the same house for over 30 years, and I drive the same way to work for 40 years. And it was, so I know every nook and cranny, crack, transition from asphalt to concrete. So I can tell what the differences are between the cars that I drive.
Well, and for those people that are not familiar with the Intrax brand of shocks, because that's not one that might be commonly known, Intrax is a European company that's known for building really high-end motorcycle shocks for racing motorcycles. And there is no vehicle on the road today that is as hard on shocks as motorcycles are. So these Intrax shocks they have absolute top quality, and we've been so incredibly impressed by them. Our customers are coming back and giving us great feedback as far as being impressed by the shocks as well.
There are a number of categories here. It has the right price point, the performance point. It's a European quality product, and it's made by a company that's been making shocks for 50 years, and they've been making these for over 6. So we're very happy with this product. And again, if you have suspension issues, this is on our e-store. You can go there and just buy it, and we will ship that out. We keep plenty of stock with these shocks.
Yeah, if I remember right, was it not Conrad Buck from Mars Orbiter that worked with Intrax?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that because Conrad was instrumental. He is the Roadster Service Organization, one of them in Germany, and he was instrumental in pioneering this product with Intrax, getting them all of the spring rate data, the weight data, all four corners, and developed a product that exceeds expectations in many ways.
So we definitely wanted to give that shout out to Conrad as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, so we've got those pictures. So tires, this is another thing that came up last week. Occasionally people ask, what kind of tires should I put on my Tesla Roadster? We've got a newsletter out there, by the way, that gives some tire tech regarding Roadsters. But I wanted to share with you the most current conventional wisdom regarding what people are doing about tires. One of our contributors says, I can't say enough positive things about the Continental Extreme Contact DWS-06 Plus for the Roadster. He says they're smoother, quieter, better in rain if you get stuck in it, and twice the lifespan as the Yokohama AD07 while half the price. He says, I have them on all my Roadsters, so that's quite an endorsement there. And then somebody else chimed in and said they also had the same type of tire. And by the way, Continental Extreme Contact DWS-06. The sizes that you're going to need are, for the front, 195/50-16, and for the back, 225/45-17. Because remember, in your Roadster, the front and rear tires are a different size and a different width. So thank you for all of you chiming in and helping this customer find the right tires for his Roadster. We've got another image I want to throw up, and this is the parking light lens image. And this is a not uncommon problem that occurs with Tesla Roadsters. What you're looking at here is one of the headlights, the left side, and that little illuminated bulb that you see there is a parking light. And the lens has fallen off, and they typically roll around inside the housing of the headlights. Of the headlight housing. And it's terribly annoying because you've got this beautiful car in here, you've got a loose thing, and you can't get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is happening here is the original Tesla Roadster headlights had incandescent bulbs. And this particular bulb is also incandescent, and it gets pretty hot. And it sits very close to the little lens that snaps into this section here. And what ends up happening is with age, it actually melts that little lens, or at least the holding clamps or the portions that hold that lens into that receptacle. And eventually it comes loose, and then it falls out, and it rolls around. What we do is a complete headlight rebuild, which opens up the headlight. We also then polish the inside if necessary. And we change all of the bulbs to much, much cooler LEDs and also much brighter. So you get a number of advantages here. Not only do your headlights get rebuilt, but we change them to much cooler bulbs so you don't have this problem occurring again. And we end up changing the cups in the back. There are rubber cups that with age stretch and expand. And they used tie wraps back in the day, which also, eventually deteriorate. They get brittle and they crack. So what you end up with is the ability for dirt and dust and moisture to penetrate and get inside your headlight housing. What we end up doing during a headlight rebuild is we change those rubber cups to more tight versions, brand new versions, and we use stainless steel clamps instead of nylon tie wraps, which will hold that in place infinitely longer than something like a nylon tie wrap. So again, if you have this symptom, they are repairable. If you don't want to ship your car to us to have this repair done, you can ship just the headlights. And, any competent body shop can safely remove your headlights and have them ship out for rebuild like this. All right, looks like we've got a couple of comments here. TikTok, Arnie B says hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Instagram, Jalak024 says hi. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
So we are at an hour almost.
Okay, right. The final picture I want to throw up here, guys, is VIN 184. And this was a Tesla Roadster with a recent battery change. In fact, just in September, customer put $34,000 in this car. And on Bring a Trailer, the bid got up to $90,500. And the seller was astute enough to recognize that he might need to put a reserve on this car. Otherwise, if you don't have a reserve, then you got to buy your car back and you have to pay the auction fees if you don't like the price.
Right.
And that has happened before. So there was a reserve. The car did not sell. And this was probably the worst example of low Roadster valuation in within this year at least. And essentially, this car at $90,500 was being sold for $56,000, and this is a fully functioning car.
Yeah, I mean, that's $56,000 on a car is, boy, that's what, 2018 prices, Pete? 2017 prices?
Yeah, it's very early prices. You're right. You're right. This is what Tesla used to buy the buyback Roadsters for.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah. And those are usually broken. But anyway, what we did was we posted this. And again, this is a strong argument for the Tesla Roadster matchmaking site that we have on our website. And as one of the Roadster owners pointed out from the UK, he says, BAT, Bring a Trailer, is an auction site at the end of the day. Your Roadster matchmaking service is, in my opinion, a far better way to keep the price at levels which is both fair to the buyer and seller. And the final caveat here is, and our site removes thousands of dollars of sharing the resale price with a third party. Bring a Trailer, by the way, is owned by Haggerty, who is certainly not a nonprofit business. They are a for-profit business, and the auctions are their core, so they have to charge. Our matchmaking service is not our core business, and we are part of and able to offer it for free to the Roadster community. So we're more than happy to represent your car on our matchmaking site. You can also get a good sense of valuation by going down to the sold section on that matchmaking site, and you can see what the Roadsters have been selling for the last 3 years now.
Now, to clarify on that, I do believe that we leave the listed prices on the cars that have sold and not necessarily the sale prices, because as a matchmaking service, we do not always know how much these cars are selling for.
Correct.
Again, we're Tinder. We're not Bring a Trailer.
We're Tinder. Yeah. Good way to phrase it. Yeah. So if you see those sale prices in the sold section, it's usually indicative of some negotiation that had taken place, but certainly not a $56,000 Roadster.
That's correct.
So anyway, I think we are out of talking points here today, unless anybody else has anything that they would like to chime in. We thank you for joining us. This is the new Tuesday, 11 o'clock Tesla Roadster podcast. We'll do our best to advertise this on various social media sites. The rest of our podcasts are tomorrow, Wednesday at 10. We've got our AI podcast. Mm-hmm. Friday morning is the Gruber Power Services podcast, which was really the genesis of us getting into the Tesla repair business.
It sure was.
And then Monday, we have our communication group podcast. So everything EV related now has been moved to Tuesday, both at 10 o'clock for the general EV and 11 o'clock for the Roadster podcast.
Well, take care, guys. I look forward to seeing you next week. I will be completely here, not just my sunglasses and a little bit of my cheek.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.